Two, three, point.
Ayoko.
Sige, majority, please stand up. Okay. Now this time, let's start with this group. So let's start with Mr. Insong.
So, the communication used in that is public communication. So, it is public communication. It is because Jonah communicate with her friends in order for her to share what she felt what she felt during, the whole process, or the rejection that the man that she loved rejected her. So, yeah.
Okay, next, Mr. Danilo.
So
Settle down.
I'm actually agree to what Mr. Insong said earlier, but that is actually a group of people or a individuals that is actually communicating each other, right? So yeah.
Okay, Lumatos.
Okay, so small group because it consists of 3 or not more than 10 groups, 10 members. It is because by that small group, so each members of the group can share their ideas and thoughts in order for them to share their opinions. Discuss.
Okay, so thank you for your answers. Well, that's actually correct. It's part also of public speaking that involves not just one person, but two more.
Many more.
Okay, now what do you think happened next after Jonah talked to her friend? Okay. Now, with the whole, now this time, in part of her moving moving on phase, Jonah decided to be part of the SK Council. Now this time, with the whole organization, Jonah called for a meeting for an upcoming event. Jonah finally moved on. She became an SK chairman and was asked to prepare a public speech. Now this time, again, please raise your hands and 1, 2, 3, point. Sige. So majority, please. Majority, please stand up. Okay. Now this time, let's start with this group.
So I think it's public speaking wherein you will speak in front of a crowd or a group.
Okay, thank you. How about you?
Yeah, I agree to her answer on public speaking. So, best example for it is political campaign, seminars, and like meetings. That's all.
Okay, so thank you. Yes, Miss Graffet.
So as we gather information, it is an organizational communication in which the SK chairman or Jonah speaks in front to bring her message to the crowd.
Miss Amatorio.
I also agree to the answers of the different groups, which is public speaking, because in public speaking, there's always be a speaker and a listener. When you say about the speaker, that pertains to Jonah, and for the listeners, that would be the different or the people that is listening to the speaker.
Okay, so everyone got the correct answer, so please give Now, that actually is correct, public speaking. Now, public speaking involves it's more of a formal type of a communication. It is used just like the example given by Mr. Bandoquillo by platforms in a very formal event. Now this time, please go back to your seats. Arrange the seats, please. This time, we will be moving forward to the next type of communication, which is the pattern of communication. There are actually five. That is the one-way.
And go.
Okay. Now, this time I prepared an envelope, which is hidden around the place. Now, I want you guys to find that envelope and label these pictures that I will be posting here on the whiteboard. So, timer starts now. Four green, one yellow.
Green, one yellow. M na daw. Wow, very good.
Envelopes guys. Di ba na envelope Vicky? Piece of paper nila kung
Western.
Ang sabi ng mga pinakawa.
Ikaw po sa dato saka.
Ano? Inasal. Langsam. Tapos sino? Good afternoon, Lord.
Okay, so now everybody found their envelope and it's being pasted already here in the whiteboard. Now let's start with one-way communication. So who found the one-way communication?
David. Ito ako.
Okay, so can you explain why is it one-way communication?
Yes, so from its word one, so it actually means that there are only one person talking in front. So it's one-way communication, sir.
Okay, so that's actually correct. One-way communication usually happens within the classroom setup and a lecture. So basically, the one speaking in front is the one giving the message or the information. Now let's proceed to the two-way communication. Yes, Mr. Monreal.
Okay, so it's two-way communication because as what you can see, there is a press conference. So you have the speaker in front and you have the audience. So what you can see on the TV during the press conference, the audience in the press conference will try to give feedback on the information the speaker trying to give. That's why it's a two-way communication.
Okay, very good. So I have mentioned earlier sa one-way communication na parang classroom setup. Now, in two-way communication, it usually happens also because there is interaction between the teacher and the students. Now, after giving the information, usually students give their feedbacks and their opinions in answering several questions. Next is one-to-one communication. So, who got
So, that follows one-to-one communication is because it is a two-person communication, communicating with each other, and no other person involved.
Okay, very good. One-to-one communication usually happens when there is only two persons involved with the communication process. Next is one-to-many communication.
So, one-to-many communication because a broadcaster is delivering a message to many people through broadcasting and television.
Okay, very good. One-to-many communication. So the example pasted there is Miss Karen Davila broadcasting to the television. Now, she is giving information to many people. So next is many-to-one communication.
So many to one communication, as you can see in the picture, that there are four judges that are going to send their feedbacks or message to the audition.
Okay, very good. That's actually correct. So this usually happens, for example, defense, that there are people in front giving information to only one person. So that ends my topic. Is Kathleen who will continue?
Okay, good evening, class. So today, tonight, I am your teacher. My name is Kathleen S. Lula. So I'm requesting everyone to please turn around your chair in front of me. All right. Okay. Please settle down. So for tonight's discussion, I am going to continue the discussion of Teacher Rubio. So, what will be our topic for tonight?
Barriers
of communication.
Okay, barriers of communication. So when we say barriers of communication, what comes to your mind? Yes, Rapo.
Okay, so based on my understanding about barriers of communication, these are the mediums or the way that hinders or triggers the communication. Most likely when there are noises coming from outside, like for example, like if we're having a discussion, then there is noises coming from the outside, and other students are not able to understand what the teacher is saying, then that is alone a barrier. It can also be psychologically, or it can be also factor affecting the student's mindset. Because there's possibility that the students may be listening, but they're not able to comprehend, and that is one barrier as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Rapo. So in short, when we say barriers, these are hindrances or the distortions or maybe say distractions in terms of communicating with other people. So I have here 8 barriers of communication. So these are physiological barriers, environmental barriers, psychological barriers, social barriers, cultural barriers, semantic barriers, and organizational barriers, and communication process related barriers. So now let's have first the physiological barriers. So when we say physiological barriers, what comes to your mind? Yes, Kian.
When we say physiological, we talked about our body, the physical appearance. Yeah.
Okay, so when we say physiological barriers,
Physiology is anatomy.
this refers to physical conditions or limitations of a person that affects their effectiveness of connecting with other people or can affect how well can a person send or receive messages. So we have here examples of physiological barriers, and these are poor retention due to memory problems, lack of attention, discomfort due to illness, poor sensory perception, hearing problems, poor So do you have those kind of barriers?
Yes.
We of course that. So now let's proceed to the second one. We have here environmental barriers. Yes, environmental barriers. I know you are familiar with this. Suhor, can you share your idea?
For me, ma'am, environmental barriers is it's all about the things that surrounds us. So one example of this one is the noises and also the temperature that we are experiencing, just like as of the moment, the heat. So that's
Very good. So when we say environmental, these are the environmental barriers. These are the physical environment that affects the effectiveness of communication process. So if a person is in a loud noises surrounding, can he or she concentrate or hear the message that he is trying to listen? No, diba? If the person is in a place of poor lighting, is he can easily determine the one who is speaking in front of him or her? No. Of course not. So it might strain the eyes of the sender or the receiver. And if the place is uncomfortable temperature, if it is too hot or too cold, yes, it affects the communication process. And bad odor, of course. Okay. So now let's proceed to the third barrier, and this is the psychological barrier. So when we say psychological barriers, it focuses more on the mental or emotional obstacles faced by the sender or the receiver. So these are misperception, misunderstanding, distrust and unhappy emotions, emotional disturbances like fear or anxiety, and of course confused thinking. So when a person is preoccupied with negative thoughts or negative thinking, that would lead to misinterpreting the message, or he or she might have these struggles to express him or herself. Okay, so the fourth one is the social barrier. So examples of this is differences in social norms and values and behaviors. So we all know that we came from different places, we came from different backgrounds, and we have these different social norms, values, and behaviors. So when we say different backgrounds, we have different way of interpreting our message. We have different way of interacting with other people or understanding the message of other people. So if by that, this could lead to misunderstanding or misinterpretation sa mga message na atong trying to convey. So, and that would lead us to distance between individuals or the group. And cultural barriers. It has the same concept with social barriers, where cultural barriers also have cultural differences, and it leads to unfair treatment and exclusion. So, because cultural differences can also be used as a basis for prejudice or discrimination. And we have here semantic barriers. So do you have idea what semantic is? Yes, Cyril.
This is the meaning of
Can you please stand up?
semantic is part of the grammar skills wherein the words have a community. So for the semantic barriers, maybe the words that we want to give the information to someone is different meaning. So I think that it happens for misunderstanding.
Yes, that's true. Very well said. So when we say semantic barriers, this refers to a communication obstacle that arises from misinterpretation, just like what Cyril said a while ago. So we have differences in language. We all know that we came from different places. For example, si Janda, hiligay ng Jutiang, the way he speak, his accent. Ang ako is Bisaya kaayo. So there is kanang napod kay differences in terms of accent and of course the language they use. Like for example, lahi ilahang, so can you give example, Jatal?
Okay. Katulad mga words na ko. So just like for example, karon. So karon is now, but sa iligay nun, is later.
Oh, wow, so siya.
So karon diri sa mga is subong.
Okay. So by that, okay. Do you have yes?
One example also is
And-
one example also is inay, diba sa ano is inay kabalo. But there's also in Surigao, Siargao. Actually, isa dito where inay is Bindan. Bila. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so natin barrier in terms of language, diba? So this happens due to our cultural backgrounds and also our personal experiences. And now let's proceed to organizational barriers. So where hierarchical barrier happens. So I'm going to give you an example to para ma-visualize niyo kung isa dyan ang organizational barriers. Let's say for example, imagine a large company where they have these many levels of management. And this one worker is in a low position. And that person who is in a low position have this idea on how to improve their organization. But because of his position na naara siya sa low, he has this hard time to share his idea in the top management. That's why in order to pass the idea, she or he have to go through different levels of management. Like level of, pass it through the level of supervisors. And by that, this would lead to different interpretation, and this causes delays. And as the time it reaches by the top management, yes, maybe na ang makuan. The original idea might be forgotten, or the original idea is dili na siya the same sa kanang usig ganahan to be i-convey sa kanang gagama sa idea. Okay, so muna siya organizational barriers, muna siya na siya hierarchical barrier. And then when communication process related barriers, this is the kanang overall na siya nga nag-define sa mga barriers. So we have poorly defined processes, lack of collaboration and communication, and also technological limitations. So, may I ask a question? Have you also ever experienced this type of barriers in your lives?
Yes.
Yes, Rako.
I think communication process they happen when we tend not to focus on the information given. Like for example, if we are holding a meeting and then someone's sitting in front, and then you're just talking to your seatmate, so definitely there is a miscommunication, but there is a communication barrier happening. And that is focused on the second one, which is lacking of collaboration and communication. Because if you're not focusing, then what's the point of attending the meeting?
Thank you so much. Any other idea? Brian Sulamilio.
Yes, it's lack of collaboration and communication is a very impactful in communicating with others, because when you lack these elements in communication, it can lead to misinformation or misleading feedbacks. That's why there's a contradiction with each other because of this lack of collaboration and communication.
Okay, thank you so much, Lana. Okay, so I think this ends my discussion. And since we have barriers of communication, do you think we also have methods on how to overcome this?
Yes.
Of course, yeah. So can I have teacher graphic? Please come. You may have the professor.
Marco Bitan.
Okay, so good evening, class.
Good evening, ma'am.
Okay, so since Ma'am Uga is done discussing about the barriers of communication, at this moment, we are now going to learn about the methods to overcome those barriers of communication. But before that, let's have a brief note first. So can anyone tell me what is communication barriers and why they might occur? Any? Yes, Ruben.
So communication barrier is the one that interferes the communication between two persons. And they occur as what Ms. Oga said, that it occurs when it comes to different culture. Yeah. And sa meaning sa words na i-relate towards the other person.
Yes, thank you, are the obstacles that hinders or prevent the effectiveness of a communication. So now let's talk about the methods to overcome barriers of communication. As we start with the physiological barriers. So first, please read everyone.
Give each other's attention and correction abilities. Pay attention during the sharing of information. Ensure each other comfort. Ensuring the intactness of sensory perception. The limitation of hearing abilities must keep in mind. Active listening. Information overload must avoid.
Okay, so as we all know that there are people na kanang may loading or there are kanang may ilang process of kanang thinking. So naiban nga or ilang attention is kanang loading. So as a sender, it is important for us to kanang repeat ang ato ang message. Then as a receiver, it is important for us to pay attention the speaker in front or someone nga to pastorya. And we need to be active in listening also for us to process the information clearly without any kind of misunderstanding or confusion. Next, we have the environmental barriers. Please read.
Environment must ensure facilitating non-verbal communication, a comfortable sitting arrangement, a hygienic and odor-free environment.
Okay, so these are the methods to overcome environmental barriers. So for example, kanang ceremony here in France, so it is important na there is a good lighting para makarecognize mo na ako and also makarecognize mo nyo. And the comfortable sitting arrangement, dapat comfortable ba mo sa inyong upuan karon?
Yes!
So my experience ko na to today nga kanang walay bako. So I believe nga everyone is gonna nice. Ano mga other one ba? Something like that. So sakyan.
Body odor?
Name. You know, so kanang hygienic and other environment. It is important nga kanang ang usa ka individual is kanang maka-focus siya or maka-concentrate siya sa pagpaminaw sa teacher. Next is psychological barriers. Please read.
Happy and trustworthy manners should not harbor negative emotions. Avoid feeling of prejudice, resentment, and antagonism. Free from anxiety, fear, and confusion.
So feeling of anxiety, fear, and confusion is very normal when you are talking in front. So we need to consider na when talking in front of the crowd or in a simple class, it is important na dapat makontrol mo ang imong mga emotion. And when talking, for example, sa imong mga classmate or peer, dapat kanang ma-feel good nila ba nga dili sila kanang malakot or something, ma-attention nila ang ma-feel. Next is social barriers. Read.
The difference in social norms, values, and behavior must be given consideration. Social beliefs must be kept in mind.
So every one of us here has a different social norms, values, and behaviors. So if there are times na mag-figure sa atong friends or mga kaila, it is important that we need to consider their kanang social other norms and values to avoid kanang misunderstanding and to avoid kanang makahurtal sa feelings nila. Next is cultural barriers.
Consider cultural differences. Consider cultural traditions, values, and behavior.
So, same lang gyapon, we need to consider their cultural differences. The way they kanang act, the way they talk, we need to consider how they speak towards us po. And also, we have different traditions, values, and behaviors. So, I know every one of us here, we have different beliefs. So, we need to be mindful kung unsa atong pangstorya towards them. And next is semantic barriers. Please read.
Use the same language. Consider difference in expression and perception message.
Okay, so when talking, as much as possible, we need to use the same language. So it is important nga mo-avoid ta og mga jargon words or mga words nga hard to understand. So we need to consider difference in the expression and perception of message. And next is organizational barriers.
Consider organizational policy, rules, and regulation. Organization structure must be simple and non-complex. Large organization must be divided into smaller subsets.
Okay, so in organization or in a company, we all know that there are a set of rules, policy, and regulation. So as much as possible, it is important for us to follow those rules and regulation to have a smooth and effective communication. Then, lastly, we have the communication process-related barriers. Please read.
An appropriate channel must be used. A stereotypical approach must be avoided in communication. The message must be clear and non-conflicting. Proper feedback must be ensured by the recipient.
So, in this first bullet, appropriate channel must be used. So, it will depend on the situation. For example, we will use an email, a phone call, or through private message. Then, stereotypical approach must be avoided in communication. So, as much as possible, we must avoid to generalize something or stereotype na to ang ato ang kanang pangstorya. Then, next is the message must be clear and non-conflicting. So, diba, it is part of the 7 C's of communication, clear, concise, and clarity. So, when delivering a message, it is important to deliver the message clearly and concisely to for the receiver to easily understand what are we going to convey. And next is proper feedback must be ensured by the recipient. As a sender, in order for us to know if the receiver understand what are we trying to say, so it is important for us to ask feedback. So more, that would be all. Thank you.